Hello everyone, it's History Behind the Warrior, and welcome back to another Mortal Kombat 1 History of episode. With us having covered Smoke, Sub-Zero, and Scorpion, it did only feel right to round out the remaining members of the Kuei with a fan-beloved favourite, a character from the 3D era, and traitorous pupil of Kuei, Frost. Whilst on the surface, Frost has always kind of been seen as a Sub-Zero clone, beneath the stylish design and all of that talent is a conniving opportunist that seeks for her own rise to power, and is what really defines her character during the 3D trilogy, as it is typically her hubris that has been part of her downfall. But even so, it isn't misplaced, as her skill and power has always made her a formidable threat, whether that be as a pupil of Sub-Zero or a general in Kronika's army. Her lust for power is literally something she would destroy worlds to achieve. So today, we will be doing a deep dive on Frost, talk about her history throughout the previous two timelines, and what do we currently know of her in the present, as whilst she isn't playable on the base roster, she does feature on the cameo roster. But as always, before we do begin, if you like what we do here and wish to see more History of episodes, please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help support it as well as the channel out as a whole. And hey, if you want to stick around, feel free to subscribe. But anywho, let's dive right into things. Now, Frost would enter the Mortal Kombat franchise during the 3D trilogy of games. She would be part of the new ensemble and somewhat second generation of characters, designed to be the new heroes or villains of this trilogy. But how does she fit into this series narratively? Well, in the aftermath of Mortal Kombat 4, coming into Deadly Alliance, the Kuei would be under new leadership, guided by its now new Grand Master, Kuei, also known as Sub-Zero. During this time period, the Cryomancer seek to scrub away the horrible legacy his predecessor had left behind, as the Cyber Initiative had poisoned the clan's image to many. With him as its new Grand Master, he seek to go back to the clan's old ways and traditions. Thus, he would hold a tournament to find new and talented fighters for this new generation of the Kuei. Now of course, Frost would be one of the many participants in this tournament. But what did we know of Frost prior to this? Well, honestly very little. Frost's history and origin is not something ever tapped into or explored, only that she was the descendant of the Cryomancer line, and one of the very few that existed across the realms. During this time, she gained a kinship for martial arts, and decided to train rigorously in order to hone her skill and talent in cryomancy. So coming into Kuei tournament, she was more than prepared to prove her worth to the Grand Master, knowing very well that she could play off their kinship for cryomancy, and she did somewhat achieve this goal during the tournament. Because of this, Frost would actually be taken on by him as an apprentice. But it's here where we begin to see the cracks in her character, because beneath all of that power and bravado was a very insecure individual, as she was envious of her master's skill and wished to surpass him, as she perceived his kindness for weakness. So as they trained together, there would be a lot of friction between the two, with Kuei trying to suppress her arrogance with humility. Unfortunately though, for Frost, this only made her more bitter, more hungry to steal his seat of Grand Master. And this is where her gaze would turn towards the Dragon Medallion. You see, the Dragon Medallion is a sacred relic to the Cryomancers, as it is something known to enhance their abilities. Knowing that this was the exact thing she needed to achieve greatness, Frost would slowly start biding her time, looking to take it from her master. Now, it's also around this time period where the Deadly Alliance would form and strike. Raiden would assemble the Earthrealm defenders in order to plan how they would retaliate. Now Sub-Zero would bring her along, hoping that by doing so and having her meet more experienced fighters, she could maybe learn and gain some experience from them. Yet once more, her arrogance and narcissism causes her to clash with the Earthrealm heroes. individuals, Sonya Blade in particular, who finds her attitude very disrespectful, but there was far bigger fish to fry, especially with Quan Chi and Shang Tsung wreaking havoc across Outworld. Thus, the two would set out in order to take them down, and once cast to these realms, Frost would finally reveal her true colours, freezing Kuei Liang and tearing the Dragon Medallion off his body. And what would happen next is exactly what Sub-Zero had predicted. You see, the real purpose behind Sub-Zero's training wasn't just to teach her new skills and abilities, but to have her hone and focus her mind, all things someone needed in order to harness the medallion. So once Frost got her hands on it, the medallion would rebound, seemingly killing her. Now, despite Frost's betrayal, Kuei would actually forgive her of her actions, believing it to be his fault, as he felt like he hadn't done enough as a teacher in order to set her on the right path. So with much regret, a broken-hearted Kuei Liang would take the dead Frost and encase her within an ancient cryomancy tomb, one belonging to their ancestors, as he did feel like it was a fitting end for her. Little did he in fact know that she was actually still alive. So this now leads into the events of Mortal Kombat Deception. And here, Frost would have quite a change of character. Whilst only exclusively playable in the Unchained version of the game, we learn here that once she awakens from her comatose state, she begins to tether on a path of mania aimed at Sub-Zero, because she believes in her mind Kuei Liang had in fact left her for dead. So seeking vengeance, she would attempt to draw him out by striking down his beloved Lin Kuei. It's here though where we would get a better understanding of her obsession, anger and spite towards Kuei Liang, as once she enters the Lin Kuei facility, every single member looks like Sub-Zero. Her desperation and desire for vengeance had driven her mad, so she would begin killing many members of the clan, eventually drawing him out. Knowing of the threat she posed, Frost was very quickly stopped in her tracks, and then frozen by the Cryomancer, encased in an ice coffin to stop her rampage, with Kuei still believing that she was in reach, as he attempted to find a cure for her madness. So this would now take us into the events of Mortal Kombat Armageddon. And during the game's conquest mode, we do actually see Frost be freed from her ice coffin, as the Edenian demigod, Taven, is currently looking for relics left behind by his parents. Unfortunately, still tainted by her mania, once she sets her sights on Taven, she does once again see Sub-Zero. Thus, the two would fight, with the Edenian demigod being victorious. But her freedom by the hands of the demigod would actually mean that she appears in the final battle of Armageddon, joining the forces of darkness as she looks to extinguish Kuei Liang's light. It is unknown if the two ever encountered each other during this battle, but seeing as they are one of the many that perished, we'll sadly never really get that answer. This though wouldn't be the end of Frost, as she does return during the rebooted timeline. And here, not too much changes about the character, as she still is as brash and as arrogant as ever, joining the Lin Kuei following Kuei Liang's restoration. I do wish to point out that she did actually appear in the Mortal Kombat X comic book line, but with its ever so recent retcon, this means that she would make her debut in Mortal Kombat X, where she would interrupt a peace treaty between Kuei Liang and Hanzo Hasashi. And with the Shirai Ryu being eternal blood rivals with the Lin Kuei, she saw what Kuei was doing as the deepest form of betrayal to the clan. This forces his hand, as he must freeze her to stop her. And all of these events would boil over into the events of Mortal Kombat 11, as her dissatisfaction with Bi-Han inevitably grew into resentment. It was so palpable that it was even noticed by the Titan Chronica. Seeking to reset the timeline and rid the universe of those that had twisted her vision, Frost would be one of the very first people she reached out to, offering her a place in her new timeline and empire, one where she would be the true Grand Master. As a somewhat promise to gain her trust, she would make her head of the Cyber Lin Kuei, as she herself underwent cybernetic augmentations, becoming its new Grand Master. By lurking in the shadows and plotting their attack, they were able to wage a full-scale assault against the Kuei of this timeline, abducting nearly all of them and harvesting them into her army. It's only until it's infiltrated by Hanzo and Kuei to which this bloody massacre would stop. But by then, the damage had been done. The Kuei were lost, with Kuei Liang as its only existing remnant. So in her eyes, this can be seen as a bit of a victory, no matter how small it might be. Now Frost would make her next appearance during the climax of the game, as she travels out to the Sea of Blood, looking to crumble Raiden's forces before they can get to Kronika's Keep. She would unleash her cybernetic army and bask in the overwhelming power she's accumulated. It's only until she directly confronts Raiden to which her madness finally stops. To prevent any further bloodshed, Raiden would short-circuit her mind, severing her mental connection with the cyber Kuei. So from this point onwards, Frost is not seen for the rest of the main game's story. She would make one more final appearance, taking place in the Aftermath timeline, a splintered parallel to the events of the main game itself. During Nightwolf's chapter, she would attempt to stop the shaman, but do so in a losing effort. And with both of these timelines ceasing to be, not really much is known of what becomes of Frost from that point onwards. So this brings us all up into the events of the new era. So, what do we actually know of Frost here? Well, very little actually. She's never physically seen in the game's story, nor is she referenced to by name, but there is an intro between Bi-Han and General Shao that does softly imply that she does exist in this timeline, still being a part of Bi-Han's all-new Kuei. Yet, much like the original continuity, it looks like her lust and hunger for power continues to thrive, as it is Shao that warns Bi-Han of her ambitions. And like that everyone, this has been it for the history of Frost. I hope you have enjoyed this one and learnt more by doing so, as Frost is a really fun character in the franchise. And I like that despite her similarities with Kuei Liang, she has her own personality, dreams, and ambitions that really helps separate her from him. What I am the most interested to see now though, is her relationship and interactions with Bi-Han. Because if you actually think about it, these two kind of share the same ambitious goals, but have never actually interacted with each other in previous timelines. Thus, I want to see how this relationship kind of works out, and if they end up clashing with each other, just due to how similar their personalities are. With that said, what are your thoughts on Frost here? And what would you like to see done with her in this new era and timeline? Please do comment down below. But for now everyone, that's been it for me. Take care, and I'll catch you in the next one.